Erev Tov Rabotai, we are continuing with our Mishna Yomi Masechet Bava Batra. We are up to Perek Vav Mishnah Zayin. Today's Mishnayot should be Le'elu Nishmat Neria ben Svetlana Ranbai Veliyahu ben Burcha Israel of Chana bad Miriam Sason ben Raya and Yoshua ben Shifra Menuchatam began Eden Amen and Avde ben Chaim lechaim v'derefua shelemav Daniel Shalom ben Rosa betoch Shah Chole Israel and Achlama Mera Binyamin Or Tzion Chai ben Dvorah. The Mishnah continues speaking about laws that concern paths through others' property. Mi sha'ita derech harabim overet betoch sadeu. If someone had a public path running through the middle of his field, meaning the public had always walked through the field, this fact itself gives the public a legal right to walk through the field. Netalah v'natale minatzad, and since he did not want people walking through the middle of his field, he took the path away and gave them a path on the side of the field in its place. Masha natan natan, the law is that what he has given is given, meaning the public may keep the new path. V'shelo lo igio, but he does not get his path, meaning the one that he took away back, and the public may still use that path as well. Since he acted improperly by trying to take a path away from the public, they are allowed to keep both paths. Now, although he gave the public a substitute path in return, it is inevitable that a new path is inferior in some ways to the old one, because there will always be some people from whom the old path was better. For instance, it was closer to their house. Therefore, one is never permitted to take away a path that is used by the public, even if he gives them another one in return. And although he gave the public the new path in error, only because he thought he can keep the old path, he still may not take it back, since he should not have tried to switch the paths in the first place. The sages penalized him and let the public keep both paths. The Mishnah lists the standard width of several types of paths. The path of an individual person is 4 amot wide. If a person buys or receives a path to another person's property and the width of the path was not discussed, he receives a path that is 4 amot wide. A public highway. Now the term derech harabim has a different meaning here than it does in the beginning of the Mishnah. There it simply means a path used by the public. Here it means a public highway, a major road that will be used by many people at once. So a public highway is 16 amot wide. Since many people travel on it at one time, there must be enough room for people and wagons to travel in both directions. Therefore, if a person sells a town or city the right to build a road to his property, he must provide them with a path that is at least 16 amot wide. The Mishnah teaches 2 laws about paths that are unrelated to sales. Derech hamelech en la shiur, the path of a king has no limit. A king is entitled to travel anywhere he pleases, even through private property. The royal party may even break down fences if this is necessary for them to reach a destination, although they do not own the property. Derech hakever en la shiur, the path of a party that is traveling to bury their dead in a grave, also has no limit. A burial party may also travel through others' property to reach the place where a dead person is to be buried. The burial party may even walk through fields in which crops are growing, but they have no right to break down fences as a royal procession does. The Mishnah closes with a sales-related law about burial parties. Ha-ma'amad, if one buys a parcel of land to use for the ma'amad ceremony, which was customarily performed after a burial, while returning from a burial, it was customary to stop and sit 7 times, delivering eulogies for the deceased each time. The 7 stops correspond to the 7 mentions of the futility of life in this world that are found in the beginning of the book of Kohelet. The word ma'amad means to stand or stop. The entire procedure was therefore known as the ma'amad ceremony. Nowadays, while the ma'amad ceremony as described here is not performed, there is a custom to stop 7 times while carrying a coffin toward the grave before burial. So again, if one buys a parcel of land used for the ma'amad ceremony, Dayanet Tzipori Amru, the judges of Tzipori ruled, Bet Arba'at Kabin, that the seller must give him an area large enough to plant 4 kav of grain, which is a parcel of 50 by 33 and a third amot. This is an area of between 4,129 and 6,444 square feet, depending upon the various opinions as to the length of an amah. The judges of Tzipori determined that an area of this size is large enough to hold the number of people that would normally attend such a ceremony. And that is then of Mishnah Zayin. The final Mishnah of the chapter, Mishnah Chet, deals with a person who sells land for a burial ground or contracts to build a burial ground. The Mishnah discusses how much land is required for a burial ground and how it must be laid out. Hamocher makom lechavero la'asot lo kever, one who sells his fellow a plot of land so that the buyer can build a burial ground there. And similarly, one who accepts a contract to build a burial ground for his fellow, must make the interior of each burial cave within the burial ground 4 amot by 6 amot. Now, in the times of the Mishnah, people were buried in shelves dug into the walls of a burial cave. The burial caves, which were specially dug to be used for this purpose, were rectangular in shape. Bodies were buried in the walls on 3 sides of each burial cave. The 4th side opened into the courtyard through which the burial party would enter the cave. A burial ground consisted of a courtyard and several burial caves. So again, it must be 4 amot by 6 amot, the interior of each burial cave. Upoteach letocha 8 chuchin, and he must dig 8 burial caves, which are like niches or shelves into which the coffins are placed into the walls of each cave. 3 on this side of the cave and 3 on that side of the cave. Ushnai mikinegdan, and 2 in the back wall that is opposite the entrance to the cave. That is brought down in the Arts Elucidated Note to diagram A. The Mishnah next discusses the size of the burial recesses themselves, the burial cave. V'chuchin, and as for the burial recesses themselves, Aolkan 4 amot v'ruman 7 v'rochban 6. Well, not the caves, I'm sorry, for the burial recesses, which are like the shelves into which the coffins are placed. Their length must be 4 amot, their height must be 7 tvachim, and their width must be 6 tvachim. Now, a coffin was typically slightly less than 4 amot long, 6 tvachim wide, and 6 tvachim high. It was slid into a shelf, a recess, to be buried there. The recess itself was 7 tvachim high, so there would be an empty tefach of space between the coffin and the roof of the recess. This caused the tumah of the coffin to be contained within the recess, so a person walking on the ground above would not become tameh. Now, each long 6 amot wall of the cave is spaced for 3 recesses, 1 at each end of the wall and 1 in the center, with 1.5 amot between recesses, and the short 4 amot wall had space for 2 with 2 amot between them. A second view as to the proper size of a burial cave, Rabbi Shimon says, Oset tocha shel mara 6 amot al 8. He must make the interior of each burial cave 6 amot by 8 amot. Upotech letocha 13 kuch, and he must open 13 recesses into the walls of each cave. 4 mikan v'arba mikan, 4 on this side of the cave, 4 on that side of the cave. U'shlosha miknegdan, 3 in the back wall that is opposite the entrance to the cave. According to Rabbi Shimon, each long 8 amot wall had space for 4 recesses with 1 1/3 amot between recesses, and the short 6 amot wall had room for 3 with 1.5 amot between recesses. This would be diagram B in note 4 in the Art Scroll Elucidated. The Mishnah now Ushlosha mikenegdan, right? 3 in the back wall that's opposite the entrance to the cave. Ve'echad mimin ha'petach ve'echad min ha'smol, an additional 2 recesses dug diagonally into the corners of the back wall, 1 toward the right of the entrance to the cave and 1 to the left. The 2 additional recesses were at a lower height than the rest of the recesses in the cave, because otherwise their openings would be in the same space as the recesses at the corner of the wall, so they were down a little bit, as the Gemara says on page 101b in Bava. Again, diagram B in note 4. The Mishnah now presents several opinions regarding the layout of the burial ground. He must also make a central courtyard that opens into the burial cave, 6 על 6, which measures 6 by 6 amot. So there is enough room for the coffin and those who are burying it to stand. And he must dig 2 burial caves that open into the courtyard. 1 on this side of the courtyard and 1 on that side of the courtyard. And this Tana holds that a burial ground must have 3 sections, a central courtyard, and 2 burial caves on 2 opposite sides of the courtyard. According to this Tana, the total area of land needed for a burial ground with the courtyard and 2 4 by 6 amot burial caves would be 12 by 26 amot. Now, the other 2 sides of the courtyard do not lead into caves, so that the burial parties will be able to enter and leave the courtyard without walking over the graves. Although one who walks over the graves does not become tameh, this Tana is of the opinion that it's considered disrespectful to build the burial ground in a way that will force the burial parties to walk on top of the graves. Rabbi Shimon says, he must make 4 burial caves on each of the central courtyard's 4 sides. According to Rabbi Shimon, we are not concerned that the burial parties will walk over the graves. Rabbi Shimon is of the opinion that one may build burial caves on all four sides of the central courtyard, and this is not considered disrespectful since people walk there only occasionally. Therefore, the total area required for a burial ground, according to Rabbi Shimon, who stated in the Mishnah earlier that each burial cave must be 6 by 8 amot, is 30 by 30 amot. That would be diagram D in the notes. Now the Mishnah presents a final view according to which the size and number of burial caves is not always the same. Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel says, Akol lefi hasela, everything depends on the type of ground and the place where the burial ground is being made. Both the number of burial caves that must be dug in the burial ground and the size of each burial cave, as well as the number of recesses in each one, will vary according to how hard the ground is. If the ground is hard and rocky, which makes it difficult to dig, he must make just 2 small burial caves of 4 by 6 amot each. But if the soil is soft and is easy to dig, he must dig 4 large burial caves of 6 by 8 amot. And the Rav does tells, V'alacha ki Tanakama, the Alacha follows the opinion of the Tanakama. And that is the Nabotai of today's Mishna Yomi. Baruch Adonai Le'olam. Amen v'amen.